Welcome to High Five. Thank you very much. It's Friday. We're recording this for the second time on a Friday, which seems really unusual for Rory and I, because we've normally got it
Tuesday at Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. But Claire's been so ridiculously efficient with her choice of days that she's joined us on a Friday, and we'll put this out the same day we record it, which is just marvellous. Claire, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hi, Claire.
Doing
Hello.
Great, thank you. Doing great. Looking forward to the
Doing good,
weekend.
thank you.
I was going to say sun shining, but west of Scotland.
Sunshine. No, I think we've maybe stolen her across to the Northern Irish coast here. So
It's bright here in Warwickshire, but it's not as sunny as it has been.
Hey, let's make it shine for the next this conversation. We don't need the weather to be that dependent.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much for taking time out to join us on this lovely High Five Friday. You had a magical nomination last week by Helen in our session, and she described you in a lot of ways. I think we were chatting pre-session that you hadn't really thought about some of those things for yourself, but I wanted to just remind you of some of the key words that she used, because I think they're important words to recognise and to rest with you, to see how they sit with you. Courageous, loving and caring in the way in which you do things. A fiery redhead, and she was so... Well, she started first actually talking about how much she admired the grace and the elegance of how you dealt with co-parenting, and how you had done that in such an elegant manner, and also that having to do that in balance with running your own business. And I was doing a wee journey this morning through some of your activity and stuff that I'd seen online and things as well, and I could see a lot of that in the work you've done. I was absolutely deeply curious about your writings as well when I started to read through stuff as well, Claire, and started to read the style of your writing, and not just what you're writing, but the style of how that was combined together. That there's a little mutual connection here with Julie Drybrough, I think, between the three of us possibly as well, that we'll maybe chat into. But that whole piece that she said that you're really talented at getting real with people, and curious to help other people to learn really well and to grow in their own space. So I think there's so many areas in there that I'd love to chat to you about on this little conversation we're having today. So welcome, Claire. I'd love you to tell us firstly how that landed with you as a nomination last week when you got that wee notification on whatever social media platform you happened to notice it on, and how those words sat with you.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, I thought I can't live up to that. Either that or I should pay Helen to do PR for me, because it's so generous. But in lots of ways, I could have probably said similar stuff about Helen. So, as you experienced, when I was watching last week's, I was thinking, crikey, she really is the Queen of Serene, isn't she?
Yeah.
Which is always the impact she's had on me. And so, yeah, I think it is a juggle, as you guys are with parents. I think there's that thing where you want to work with people and you want to give out to the world whatever you can, and just like you guys are doing. And you want to be the best role model for your kids, and the best friend or family member and whatever. And it's just a juggle, and it's just kind of, you're always learning. So it's just one of those things, really. I got into it. I got into this area, if you like, because I used to have, a corporate type job. I worked in television, in advertising sales, and then I worked in fundraising. And I kind of got frustrated with office politics and people's talent getting quashed. And it might be because managers didn't have experience or time or whatever it was. And then I took myself off to Australia in it for a year. And it was when I was serving someone steak in the best jazz club in Sydney, which I fell upon as a job. So I got a jazz education at the same time. Nice. And this guy was being really awkward about his steak. And I had quite a bit of waitressing experience. And as I won him over, and then he offered me a job, and then he left me a massive tip. And I was like, oh, this is it. If you give people what they need, they just blossom and it just happens. Yeah. And so I came back to the UK and I was thinking, I was talking to a friend saying, well, what am I going to do with this? Because my background's psychology and I want to help people. and I wanted to do something about the world of work. And my friend just said, you should do coaching. It's just come over to the UK, you should do coaching. I was like, well, what do I know about coaching? And she was just saying, well, you've been doing it to me and for me for years. So, and that's how it all happened. And then, so it kind of became organic from there and ended up in speaking and training and facilitating. And so here we are.
Right. It's amazing the things you think you don't know about that you do know about. You're doing them already without really consciously noticing. Especially what you said about the co-parenting aspect of what you do. You just do it because you're a parent and you do stuff, but you don't appreciate that somebody else is looking at that through a lens of admiration.
There's no job teaches you. Sorry, Claire, go ahead.
Go on.
No, I was going to say there's no job that teaches you on the fly like parenting, and you learn so much while you're doing it, and then you kind of think, oh right, okay, I'm really rubbish at this, but someone else will actually go, oh, you're really good at that. Did you not know you do this and you do this? And I love that aspect of taking that back to life as well, as you don't realize just the conversations you're having or the experiences that you're cultivating with someone else until you are able to take a step back from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sometimes we're just so self-critical and we just don't really appreciate what we're capable of until someone else points it out. So, and like I said, parenting, you think you get either nappy changing or you understand how you can take their phone off them and get them off their screens or whatever. And there's something like teenage years hit and attitude and all the rest of it. And there's just another curveball that hits you between the eyes. And before you know it, you've actually learned a lot more than you thought. And so have other people around you. And yeah, it's organic, isn't it?
It's a good sense. You get a good sense of a check in reality, whether you're doing the right things as well in your business, whether you spend the right quality of time on things. There's no better sanity check for me if one of my kids says to me, oh, you'll be too busy to deal with this, Dad. Because straight away I know I probably have been and I shouldn't have been, and I should have been spending more time in the presence of doing the things I should be doing rather than spending my time sitting in here and colouring in things purple. It's a good reality check for you to keep checking those kind of things to make sure you spend the right quality of time, because you only get one chance at you to help them to grow and to blossom. So it's really important. There was a card that was nominated for you last week by Helen as well, and we did it in a slightly different way than what we normally do, mainly because of my tardy email that I completely forgot to attach the visual of the cards in it. And she picked out one of the enable cards, one of these little cards here, little purple ones about help people to blossom and to grow. And the card that was given to you, Claire, was this one here. It's just called the Seeds of Growth. We're the fullest when we're a tool that helps others to grow. Place this card somewhere it can blossom. What does that mean to you and what you do in your role, what you do in your life? And I know a wee bit from what I've read on Wildfire Spark and everything, but what does it mean to you, and what does that card connect with you and the way you do things?
It was odd, actually. It connects straight away in terms, and it took me right back to the beginning. When I set up the business, which is Wildfire, and then I kind of had the handle of Wildfire Spark, probably because Wildfire had gone on Twitter or whatever at the time. And the reason Wildfire was inspiring in terms of a name was because, one, it kind of conjures up bright images, and my favorite color is orange, but also because, well, I don't know how much people know about wildfire, but we always think of it, oh, the wildfires or headlines or whatever, but the whole process of a wildfire is that it actually speeds up getting the nutrients back into the ground for new growth faster than the normal biological and ecological process. And so what I liked about the whole wildfire thing was that it kind of strips things back, and it gets us to, the real kind of heart and the nutrients. And so that was the first thing that it kind of I thought, oh, wow, that kind of applies. But also the seeds of growth for me that's what we can be for everybody else. So your business being, the cards and all of that. We were talking earlier about it being organic and kind of paying it forward. And I just think that every conversation, not whether you're in coaching or development or whatever, and you mentioned Jules about writing, everything we do changes someone's next step. whether it could be good or bad, but it's up to our interpretation. But every time we have an interaction or a dialogue, or we cross paths with someone, or I just think people are brilliant. I think people are genius, and even when people are troubled, there's always magic in everybody. If only we just stop to see it, because the messages we have outside in life is that try harder and work faster and fix it and control, and the more we kind of like handle things really tightly, we almost can strangle things. Whereas, like you're saying about children, they're just the perfect mirror for us just to sit back, and they just say things and they just make us see things. And every conversation you can have with a child, or every conversation we have with somebody else, they're just little seeds in there, and it might be, and it's the same as or you call it a spark or whatever. And people go away. It might be they could be in the shower or driving or walking somewhere, whatever, and a couple of days later, and something we said, or something in an interaction we had, or just an exchange with someone's getting on a bus they have with a bus conductor or whatever it is, that can, for me, they're kind of like seeds, and we're constantly planting seeds, and we're constantly we're constantly taking seeds from our experiences and other people. And I think there's just real magic in there. So that's what it made for me. As in, it's just incredibly simple about if we just sit back and we just notice things, and sometimes we just don't have to try too hard.
Yeah. I think planting those and cultivating those makes so many other things come to life. I have to think about the relationships that I've formed over the last 12 months. I think I've probably got friends that I've never met yet that will be strong as friends as Rory and I have been over the years, when we get the chance to blossom in the years to come. And that's only came because we've planted something as an idea, or as a seed, or as a tool, or a conversation that's taken place. I mean, I've had conversations in the last 3 weeks with new friends over in the States that I've never met, that were hanging out on a Friday night, having a beer on Zoom and chatting, and I've never been in the houses, I've never met their families, and didn't know anything about them a month before it. But it's just that magnetism to help and to support and to grow and to help each other blossom, that I just think there's something innately, to use Helen's phrase, beautiful about that, about discovering each other's brilliance and how you can help that to blossom through the sharing of ideas with each other. Makes such a difference. And Rory's been in the States, so he knows that better than I, in terms of the times he lived over there. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And it's one thing that we've talked about in the past, Scott, like just how the different cultures have always felt a little bit disjointed in how they're connected. But the last 12 months or 14 months, however, we've been in these lockdowns where we've relied on the digital world, has really just allowed us to collide in a beautiful way, where we've had Kind Fests, we've had Cognitize Connect sessions and high fives in the States, where it just feels like you're at your neighbor's house having a cup of tea and just talking about crazy ideas. And funnily, I finished up my final Write Night session this week with Julie. And one of the things we talked about, Scott, was an old mentor of mine, Clare in Washington, Paul Costello, has a story model, and we talked about that on the start of the Write Night session. And it was amazing just by the end of that session how many people were writing about it. And they literally heard me talk about it for 5 seconds, but it's little seeds of growth about the start of the start and the end of the end, and how you can get there, that it just resonated with people. Because I guess we all have to be open to the seeds being planted, but at the same time, we're in a world of possibility at the minute. I've said that over the last few weeks on High Fives, but I do believe that we're in such a good, positive place. There's lots going on in the world that isn't positive, but if we focus on that, we get caught up in that vortex. Whereas actually, if we focus on just great relationships with people and cultivating stories and new business ideas, the amount of business ideas that we've seen come to life over the last 12 months has been incredible, because people just decided to be brave and maybe had a coach or maybe had a conversation with somebody who just empowered them to feel they could do it. And for me, that's one of the things that I take away. It's something I spoke about on an earlier session today about my LinkedIn profile. Jeff Way, a friend of Scott and I, had put my LinkedIn profile up, and it says founder and chief merchant of fun. And we talked about Chimp Paradox and everything else. And I said, you've no idea how much I deliberated about putting that as my tagline on my LinkedIn profile, because you're supposed to be corporate in that space. But actually just being able to let go of that because other people believe in you and just go, I'm going to do it. And then in the comments, someone else commented, I've just done it because I've deliberated on it for weeks and you've just helped me see that it's okay to do that. Those are the seeds of growth that for me, that can plant, and just 12 months from now, they're going to be incredible stories that someone else has shaped.
That's fab. How do you describe yourself, Claire? When somebody asks you, you can be Claire for a moment if you want. When somebody asks you what you do and they don't know you, how do you describe what you do? What do you say to them?
I still trip over my words first.
Right.
And it should be really polished, and I'm not. 18, 19 years in, I'm still not. Probably because it's always organic, actually. But I just tell people that I work with psychology and I coach people and I facilitate and I speak at events. And but it's interesting because you've got the superpower card, and I love that because I think just recently I've kind of worked out that if there's anything I do, it's I just help people find their superpower. And it's that, at the moment, to me, that sums it up more than anything else, because we are so often not our own champions sufficiently, or we're not reminded of our own brilliance, and how if we just stop, again, trying to be something that we're not, and we just go back to what just comes naturally, and you grow from that, it's so much easier. And everyone has a superpower. Everyone has, or superpowers. Everyone has things that most often than not, other people, their partners, their family, their workmates, they could tell them, but they assume they already know it. I want to, when I work with people, it can be teams, or it can be an audience, or it can be one-to-one clients. And so many times people say, oh, I should be this, I could be that, or whatever. And they really don't see, because they're looking elsewhere for the answers, or to be something, because they think they should be something they're not. And so, for me, it's just, I just think I'm a cheerleader for people for what they already are. And people only need a bit of that. They don't need, it's so easy to be introspective in a unsupportive way, and without recognizing the pure talent. And like you said, I love what you're saying about the stories, because everyone hears something different in everyone's story. So we'll think we're telling a story or sharing something, and someone else will take a nugget that you would not have guessed that they would take away, because they make a meaning of that. And it's so powerful, and it escalates, and it just has such a massive, it can have such, like you were saying about friendships and things, it can just have such a massive, fast impact. So I love the fact that you're getting away from being corporate, Rory.
I sometimes struggle. Scott is very, very good as a mentor for me. And when we started High Fives, I always came on with a shirt. And I think it was about week 2, week 3, he was like, you don't need to wear a shirt, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. I'm going to have T-shirts on from now. It's that permission sometimes that you feel that you need someone else to just go, do you know it's okay to just be yourself? How liberating is that in conversations of, if you be yourself, and going back to your point about the superpower, it's okay to have a cheerleader. It's okay to have a coach, because you're going to have lots and lots of negative voices around you as well. And they're the voices that like to tug a little bit and pull you back when you're really trying to be unharnessed and you're absolute best and brilliant. But actually, it's the other coaches that pull you along. I think they're the brilliance that we get,
I'm quite fascinated that superpower's an orange card. You connected to orange.
Synchronicity there.
Yeah. It's one of the orange ones that's it's actually, so when we ask people to do a story for Cognitize, I don't ask them to choose which card. I get them to choose the card that speaks to them, and that's the single most popular card for people to do a story from. It seems to be magnetic for people to share from. I love that phrase about cheerleading other people and helping them to discover that superpower. And there's nothing that would make me more satisfied professionally than somebody opening this box of cards and calling a friend up or calling somebody up and telling them what they think the superpower is, or putting a post up online and say, I want to recognize this. I think we need to cheerlead each other a whole lot more. What's your relationship with orange then, if I can ask you that? Where Why orange? What's the colour? What does it mean to you?
Well, things like pink really clash with red hair. So
Right.
there's a lot of chemical addition now at my age in this, but it is kind of the colour I was in when I was in my 30s. And I was very kind of grew up like Ronald McDonald in terms of shade of hair. And
we call that good Irish hair, Claire.
Well, if I'd been Irish, that might have helped.
You spell it the Irish way, so we'll call it the Irish. Don't worry.
Fabulous. That's like the simple way. I like simple stuff. So yeah, and I can wear orange, but I can't wear pink. And there wasn't an awful lot of orange to wear in the 70s when I was growing up. It wasn't that easily available. And you can't tell, but I'm only 5'1", so there weren't a lot of small clothes either. So and they hadn't done petite ranges then. So I was probably a fashion disaster most of my life, to be fair. But orange is just to me it's just uplifting, and it's just my favorite color. It's just one of those things where people have a favorite color, and it kind of speaks volumes, and it's energetic and it's energizing. And actually, anytime I ever hear any description of anything to do with orange, I'm like, yeah, or whether it's got a meaning or whatever. So it just resonates for me. And funny about the card and the superpower and the orange, I had years and years ago. I read the opportunity that a branding agency would design my corporate logo at the time, whatever. And I was just delighted that they chose orange as well. And so it just kind of goes where I go, or vice versa.
Brilliant. Joe, you just reminded me of something, a story from my childhood that I'd completely forgotten about until you told me about the connection to orange. I remember being on the Isle of Arran with my parents and my older brother. And my dad took me to a pub in a place called Blackwater Foot. This pub's no longer here. The neighbour next door disliked the noise in the pub, and he bought it and knocked it down because he was so rich that he could. But we're in this pub called the Rock Hotel that used to be owned by Jack McConnell, who was the ex-First Minister of Scotland. It was owned by his father. He used to work behind the bar. And I remember I must have been 14, 15 at the time, because I remember I couldn't drink, or certainly wasn't in front of my dad, sitting in the bar. And there was all these guys come into the bar who were going to the local disco that night. And the disco was in a little place next door called Shiskin, and they used to call it the Shisky Disky, was the name of it. And I can remember as a young man still trying to find my way in the world about what would look good and what would be trendy. And this guy came in who was in his mid-20s, and he had the most vibrant orange shirt on when he sat down at the table, and he had bleached blonde hair all brushed over, kind of 80s style. And I'm sitting like having a man crush on this guy going, oh, look at that orange t-shirt. I so want to be that. And the very first time that I had money to go and buy myself something, I bought a kind of cheesecloth orange shirt, because it still struck me from my memory of being 14, because I wanted that orange shirt because it produced such a glow in this guy's permanent hand that he was sitting in this bar before he went to the Shisky Disky. And it's not necessarily connected to cognitize in any way, but something in that colour of orange was glowing to me that's the colour that I need to have some destination with and some connection with. And it sat with me through, I suppose through cognitize in this sense, is that I wanted to make sure that everyone of those 52 focus on abundance and not in deficit, about celebrating what's great in people, and about championing people, as you said, about cheerleading, about recognising the greatness in others and not cutting stuff down. And actually, there's another orange card in there called Aid Others that I really, really was tempted on the language in that card to talk about improvement. And I went, nah, celebration. Let's not talk about refinement. Let's talk about celebration with it as well. So orange has got a big part to play in it. That sunshine and that positivity of where you go next. Rory strategically placed his cups behind you as well that are orange. I don't know if that was...
I know, I actually realised that as well. So that's from a game called Beat That, Clare, and so that all of these little ping pong cups, not a drinking game, in case you were thinking that. It can't be played that way.
Another wee question for you before we talk about a card that you'd like to draw. I didn't know this about you before we met today, but I was saying about Julie's connection, Julie Drybrough's connection, for those that don't know Julie. I've known Julie for about oh gosh, must be about 5 years or longer maybe. And Rory just started doing his Write Nights course, and I think he used your last session last week as well. And I noticed on your LinkedIn page there was some connection on there to Julie as well with some of your writings. But I loved the style of your writing, the whole emojis through it and the caps and lowercase. And is that a strategy you use in all of your writing for the stuff that I've seen, or have you developed that from somewhere? I'm quite intrigued to know where that comes from.
Thank you.
It's really different.
I've written blogs. I'd really big break from writing blogs for a while actually, but I started again in the pandemic, thinking people might want help. You know, people might want to kind of hear stuff that's helpful. So I started again last year. But with blogs, I have a short attention span. So when we were talking earlier about Rory's encyclopedic knowledge of movies, I'm renowned for watching a movie and irritating the person I'm watching it with because they're saying, oh, I'm in a cinema. Because they'll say, you're not watching. It's like, I am watching. I have a really low, it's not that I'm not attentive. I get bored really quickly. And so when it comes to writing, I assume other people will get bored really quickly too, if I'm spouting off about something. So I try to write really succinctly and really just make it really, really concise. And so the emojis add a bit of colour, the different cases or whatever. It's just so that it's a really succinct and punchy. And because these days we speed read so much and people are watching, you know, or reading, they're on a screen or a phone. And if it's more than a few sentences, people can get lost. And I just want, anyway, if I'm going to give something to someone, I want them to be able to just grasp it really quick, a bit like the cards. Just it's something that they can make meaning from it, but they can join the dots really quickly and then make it however is relevant to them. So that's where that comes from.
I think it's really hard to have a style when you do that, though, to have something that's uniquely yours. There's an artist I'm a big fan of called Chantel Martin. She does a lot of artwork where she uses her emotion to guide the pen. She did a lot. She did the artwork in New York Ballet School and did some stuff, some real fashion brands. If you looked at a piece of her art, you would know it's hers without a signature being against it. And the reason why I was highlighting it is I read one of your articles this morning, how will I tell? And I read the next one, and I went, there's a real flavour in all of these actually, that you can see you and your style, and each of them being you and being present in that structure and that style within it. But it did look really unique on the eye when you're reading it. It made you want to go and read the next and the next and the next because of that flavour and that style that existed within it as well. And I just wanted to celebrate it again, because I just think it's just lovely to see that uniqueness of a black pen is really hard to get, because you jump from one thing to another thing, and again trying to suit your audience rather than suiting yourself by what you're doing. I just thought that was magic. Is there a movie that connects into this, Rory?
I'm refusing to speak about movies this week because you're telling me already.
There's bound to be one.
There are many, and all the way through I was like, oh, I could talk about a superhero movie at this point.
He's going to do it.
But I'm resisting.
He's got movies in the forefront of his mind. I know it. He just doesn't.
It will come out at some point. It's unavoidable.
There's The Notebook. So I don't know many, but there's The Notebook. That's a wrong one.
Yeah, and actually, yeah. So that's all about stories that permeate through history and times, and yeah.
Thanks, Claire.
Scott, I got one. That's an absolute first.
Hey, we got a movie, and I have no clue what The Notebook is. I don't even know who's in it. Who's in it, really? He's going to know who's in it.
Oh, I can't remember the names. Ryan Reynolds. No, somebody else. It'll come to me.
I mean, I might not have been Ryan Reynolds. He's maybe just completely made that up. So,
but I know The Notebook very well because I obviously sold lots of copies of it as well when I was a bookseller at Waterstones, because people loved the book first. So, that one's kind of there, and it's
brilliant. Thank you. Never lets me down. Marvelous. Okay.
So you learned lots about your writing, Rory, through your course. I really want to do
I really loved it. I have to say, I unfortunately had to miss 2 of the sessions, but the sessions that I made it onto, it was just liberating, Claire, because the last probably 6 months of the business here, we went day to day. We've got a retail store downstairs here at Merchants of Fun, and I closed the shutters on Christmas Eve, and we weren't able to have any families coming in or any guests. So really that kind of 6-month period was a difficult one because you just couldn't do the day-to-day job. And then I started renovating the premises here and making it more ready for reopening. But that took up a lot of headspace, and you were kind of in a vortex, as I say, of, am I doing the right thing? Should we get this place ready? Will we be able to have the public back in? And actually, write nights really help punctuate away from all of that negative spin that goes on in your mind, where you could just go, do you know what, I'm going to give myself 90 minutes to just, as Julie said, find yourself on the page or meet yourself on the page. I just loved being able to scribble madness down, and it was my time, and I just locked the pup away and I locked kind of the outdoor world away for 90 minutes. So I've said, as soon as the next session opens up again, I'm back on it, because I really got something from it. And I've always been at the other end of books and stories that way, because working in the publishing side and working in the book side, you get to see incredible books and you get to read incredible books. But actually, it was great just to be at that process of, let's just see what comes out on paper and work through it. So I found it really, really enjoyable, I have to say. So thank you, Julie, if you're watching.
I did it in March as well, actually, for Julie's course, because I do a lot of writing, but I do a lot of ghostwriting, and I do a lot of writing for organizations, but you've got to write in their tone of voice quite often. So you kind of lose your own voice within it quite often. Or when you do, you're asked to suppress it a wee bit. So it's quite tricky to write just completely of your own soul and your own voice by what you're trying to do. And I came out of it writing poetry, and I went into it with not knowing what my style was. It was probably the biggest compliment I can play, Julie, that I wasn't quite sure what that voice was. And I'd done some stuff for Cognitize, as Rory knows. I'd written a couple of things that then we made into video stories to our mutual friend Mark. And that was my voice in that, but not knowing how to use that voice more consistently and more regularly for better good has been a really brilliant experience, actually. And somebody connected with me over in Spain, Jeanette, if you're watching, hello. And she had moved over to Spain from Scotland some years ago, but she just said that what I'd written had really connected with her. And I thought that relationship would never have started, would never have happened unless I'd met Julie as well, which is fabulous as well. I absolutely love your giant mug, by the way. It's just marvellous. I know we're celebrating before we come on, but do you know what? Sports Direct should be calling you, because that is far more superior than the nonsense that they give out as well.
It's Wilco.
Is it Wilco, is it? Mm-hmm. Nice work. Done the Wilcos. So every week we pick, or rather the person who joins us picks a card, and then a person who you would like to nominate that we could chat to in future. Rory, somewhat maverickly this morning, I thought rather marvellously, said, why don't we pick 6 cards each and shuffle them up on our table, and then just show Claire them and ask her to pick a card for that person. So Claire, would you like to talk about the person first, or would you like to see our cards first? What would work best for you?
No, I'll talk about the person if you like.
Right, let's do the person first. On you go.
So my person is a guy called John Baker,
okay,
who runs a business called Introverts in Business. And he works with leaders and HR people to bring out and engage their introverts and educate people in how introversion can best work in the business to increase performance and just engage all of those different personalities that we have in the workplace. And I've known John for years, and we work really closely in work together, kind of co-coach each other and things like that. And he's just one of the most generous guys. He goes by the handle of Diving John on things like Twitter and Instagram, because he's a deep sea diver. And unlike me, he's really happy to get up really early in the morning, and he'll go and photograph sunsets just when he's down by the coast, sunrises, just for the benefit of other people. And he's just really down to earth, straightforward guy, and he just makes things happen. So
yes.
Hit me with the cards.
Brilliant. Okay, right, Rory, have a little look through your cards and tell me.
So I have already, Scott, how we're going to do it this week is we've set one from each card themes face down. So do you want to turn 2 and give Claire a choice, and then I'll do the same?
Okay, right. I'm going to go for an orange one first. I'm going to go for an orange one because we've spoke about orange. So the orange one is this card here. It's called Aid Others. So it's about helping other people, basically, this little card, about offering people some positive recognition for things done well. That's the first one that I've got. Rory?
The first one I have got is from the Connect theme, and it is Time Traveler. So have a back to the future conversation with a colleague, hand them this card and ask, if you could travel back in time to assist your current challenge, what would you do and why? And lovingly, it's got the little DeLorean on here that I always love. So
nice. Okay. Another one I've grabbed here is this card here called 60-minute switch. It's basically to spend 60 minutes in that person's job and learn what it's like. So there's 4 to choose from.
That's so hard.
I can give you a 5th if you want.
I think we've only had 3 so far. I'll give you the 4th.
Oh, sorry, apologies, Rory. Sorry.
So
I get so excited at that last one.
An Empower card. And what I like about this one is, so it's helping hand. Write a top tip on a subject you've recently learned about on a post-it note. Hand it along with this card to a less experienced colleague who would really appreciate your support. So I guess that's the essence of coaching. What I love about this, Scott, is, you know, that white hair that you admired, you've kind of ended up designed into this card with that white hairstyle.
Hold it up close to the camera, Rory, for a second. There you go. Yeah, kind of is me.
So there you go. My 2, Claire, were Helping Hand and Time Traveler.
Okay, and I had 60-minute switch and Aid Others.
I think John would like the Aid Others because, like, I've just remembered, like me, he loves the colour orange, but I'm going to go for the 60-minute switch.
Oh, love that card.
Nice. Okay, John, we're coming to chat to you about 60-minute switch, and that'll be a lovely and interesting conversation. Be interesting from an introversion point of view as well. From an extrovert's point of view, how we look into a lens of introvert could be really fascinating as well. So that sounds absolutely first class. Claire, it has been magical to chat to you. Thank you so much for taking time out this morning to have such a lovely conversation. It's been brilliant. We got into this rhythm about 7 weeks ago, that when people were coming on to High Five, we felt we should recognise their contribution in different ways by offering something back to them to say thank you. I feel that should be something orange, given what was spoken about. And also we're talking about seeds of growth. My idea this morning before we chatted was actually to send you something orange that you could plant or you could gift that was growth related. Do you have a garden in your home where you live?
Yes.
Okay, so let me say that I shall post you something that's orange and could be grown. That might be a pumpkin, I don't know. We'll see what it is. But something orange that will blossom for you and will grow is the gift that we'll send you to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been fabulous. Thank you so much for having me. And you're going to have a great time with John. I just know you are.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait, actually. So we'll connect up with them and make that happen. And you can watch it back as well. Thank you. High five.
Thanks, Claire. High five.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.